Hey, Bill. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I'm about 5 pounds heavier. How about you?
Yeah, moving a little slower than normal, I would
Yeah,
say.
right.
I wanted to ask you quickly about Ted Karras and what he's brought to the line that he's been starting since week five. And in particular, just, obviously he's a guy who can play all three of those spots in there, but has a lot of experience playing center.
Right.
So that center sort of background has maybe helped you guys in the last couple months here. Knowing
Um,
he has played
yeah,
center, obviously, just that kind of that knowledge, that understanding of defenses and things like that.
yeah. No, there's no doubt about that. It's in an ideal world, your center, both your guards could play center, and then that would really give you the communication because there's a lot of pressure on the center to handle the communication on line of scrimmage. Again, like the quarterback, you want to handle it from the middle of the formation to the inside out, and somebody's got to make the decision. But when the guards see it the same way as the center, when they have that kind of experience, when they can, recognize it in sync with the center, and then that, moves the communication to the tackle and the tight end much more quickly, and smoothly. And again, then if the line stems or something happens late, a lot of times those guys are the ones who really have to make the adjustments that the center can't see it, or it's too late for him to do anything about it, and they have to do it. So yeah, so having Ted as like a second center in there, that helps in a lot of areas with both recognition and communication, and that's been good for us. But we feel good about all the players. Shaq and Mike aren't centers, but they're good players, and that's good too. And it's good to have Trent back out there and win. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Ted's done a good job inside with the communication, the toughness, and just playing the way Ted plays. He plays with a good edge, and he's done a good job for us.
Great. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, you're welcome, Phil.
Next question, Chris Ryan, followed by Nick Romero.
Morning, Bill. How are you?
Good, Chris. How's it going?
Good. Kind of along those lines, wanted to ask about the rushing attack. And Mike Vrabel said it was, if not the best, one of the best in the league. What has gone on in your view to make the rushing attack so effective?
Well, Mike's really tossing the bouquets, huh?
That's what he does.
Well, he should know a good rushing attack because they've led the league in rushing down there pretty much since he's been there. So, but again, the running game's great if it's effective. Everybody likes to call running plays, but if you're gaining a yard or 2 yards, I mean, how many of them can you call? I mean, you just can't, be 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8 all day. So the running game's great if it's, if you're making yards, and if you're not making yards, then, it's hard to keep calling them. So I think that's really a factor of, production, and certainly having balance in your attack makes it more difficult for the defense to, just stop one thing. I mean, you don't want to be a one-dimensional team unless you're just so good at it that even though you're one-dimensional, it's unstoppable. So, and that's hard to do in this league. So, as long as we can run the ball productively, then I'm sure we'll keep calling them at whatever point that doesn't happen. Like in a Tampa game, I mean, you just can't keep calling runs and be 3rd and 8 every time. That's just it's just hard to play offense that way. So, backs want to run the ball, line wants to run the ball. If we do it well, then we'll keep running it. If we don't, then we're gonna have to do something else.
There's always a lot of talk about, trying to have an identity and kind of playing to that identity. Do you believe in that, like wanting to have that thing that you're known for, or do you want to be able to adapt to whatever the circumstances are and kind of having that be your identity, kind of chameleon-like, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like for our identity to be winning. So, what we need to do, we went up to Minnesota against the #1 defense in the league and got empty and threw the ball all day. And we played against Pittsburgh in the opener in whatever year that was, '02, and line up and empty and threw the ball all day. So, sometimes you've got to do things that you feel like you need to do to win, and hopefully you have the team and the ability and enough breadth in your offense or defense or special teams to be able to do what you need to do in order to handle what your opponents do well or what you have to do to stop them. So I think that's really the part of it that it's hard to just go out there and run the same play, all day in this league and be successful. It's just, there's just too many other good players and too many other good coaches. There's a way to stop everything. It's when you have to kind of handle everything. Those are really the bigger problems. So hopefully we can, keep working to the point where we can do that. That if the defense takes something away, then we can do something else, and defensively that we're able to stop whatever it is that they have. Whether it's mobile quarterback or a good tight end or a good receiver or a good running game or a good downfield passing game or a good screen game or whatever it is. Hopefully we have, we can match up and we have enough scheme to be able to handle whatever it is we need to handle. So
Thanks, Bill.
you're welcome.
Next question, Nick O'Malley, followed by Jim McBride.
Hey, Bill.
I think
Richard Seymour and Vince Wilfork were announced as Hall of Fame semifinalists this year, and those guys are sort of particular cases because Richard Seymour, 3-4 defensive end, doesn't have those high volume sack seasons. Vince Wilfork, nose tackle, doesn't get a lot of high volume stats that really showcase his impact on the game. Where do you think those sort of guys fall in terms of a historical context of the game, in terms of dominant players you've had, and what do you think those sorts of guys should get more attention as potential Hall of Famers?
Right. Well, like as I said before, Hall of Fame's out of my control, and since there's no criteria for the Hall of Fame, it's really hard to even have a conversation about it because it's not based on anything. It's your opinion of a great player, my opinion of a great player, somebody else's opinion of a great player. Like, I don't know what that means. Is it how many years they played? Is it how many All-Pros they had? Is it how many championships they won? Is it individual stats? Is it team? You can make it whatever you want to make it. So, there's no criteria. You can make a case for everybody. And ultimately, the voters have to decide what they're going to weigh. But for me, those are the two best defensive linemen that I've coached. Vince is a phenomenal player, and he was quite different from Richard. Richard was a phenomenal player and quite different from Vince, but both very dominant in their own way and kind of in their own position. Even though Richard played nose his rookie year and Vince played end his rookie year, Vince is really an inside player and Richard's really a 3 to 5 technique. And Richard's almost impossible to match up against. But in a way, Vince is almost impossible to, he's impossible to block in a running game. And in the passing game, there's some guys that match up against him, but his overall strength and athleticism for his size was pretty impressive. And because we had players like Seymour, there was less of a need to use Vince on third down, although we used him on third down. He had some huge plays on third down, like in the AFC Championship game against Baltimore. I mean, he really won that game with his, fourth quarter pass rush on Flacco up the middle of the pocket. So, so I think it's an interesting question. I mean, again, in my Hall of Fame, those two guys are there, without a doubt. But when you start comparing, apples and oranges and Vince's style of play compared to a guy like John Randall or somebody like that, they're just completely different players, and which one's what, and who do you like? And again, I think with no criteria at all to work with really at any position for any player, it's just what flavor you prefer and what flavor somebody else prefers. That's really what it comes down to. And so I don't know. When you're asking about judging somebody for the Hall of Fame, it's hard. I can't really make a say on that. I just think that it's so much a personal perspective from the voters. The only other thing I would add to that would be relative to those two players, to Vince and Richard Seymour. I think that Rodney Harrison 100% believes in that conversation, and I've coached some of the other safeties that have been enshrined in the Hall of Fame, and not taking anything away from them, but certainly Rodney Harrison, belongs in that. He belongs in that conversation, and he certainly belongs in the conversation with other players that are already there. So, but again, all that's out of my control. I'm going to focus here on the Titans.
You mentioned Vince and Will are in your Hall of Fame. Is Rodney in your Hall of Fame?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you, Bill.
I only see one more hand raised, so Jim McCarty, you have the last question.
Good morning, Coach.
Hey, Jim.
I wanted to ask you about Nick Folk. And a couple of weeks ago, Joe Cardona called him the epitome of a professional. And just what you've seen from his consistency and professionalism that has affected your team and your locker room.
Yeah, I'd agree with Joe on that. Nick's really the ultimate team player, and he's done whatever we've asked him to do. He's always ready to go, prepared, mentally tough. When he was, dealing with some, in training camp, wasn't able to kick and all that, he was, really helpful to Quinn and even Patterson when he was here the last couple of weeks, just signed with Detroit. Again, very, very professional. He understands at a very high level his job, his role, and some of the other things that go with his role. The holding, the snapping, the placement of kickoffs for kickoff coverage and things like that. The wind and how it is in different stadiums and how what adjustments he needs to make and things like that. Nick's really, he's at a very, very high level of understanding the things that surround his position, and as a teammate and as a team member, he's as good as it gets. Again, the role is the role. I mean, there's only a few plays that those specialists play in every game. They're not out there all the time. When they're out there, they're all critical situations, and the role really gets magnified for that particular play. But day in and day out, whatever you need him for, whether it's helping out the offense or the defense or handling his roles out there, he's always there. He's helpful and again very, very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot from Nick Folk. I'll say that I've learned a lot, and he's really taught me a lot about a lot of little things that honestly I hadn't really thought that much about. And then once he pointed them out, I was kind of I've been kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't put a little more importance on it earlier. But he's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Coach. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.
When did Bud Light Seltzer start making lemonade?
Probably when 2020 handed us all those lemons.
New Bud Light Seltzer Lemonade, packed with lemonade flavor after a lemon of a year.
Opponents? I've gone up against thousands.
And there's an opponent we're all up against, COVID-19.
But there's a way to beat it. Get vaccinated.
So when it's your turn, roll up your sleeves.
And let's get to the finish line together.
When did Bud Light Seltzer start making lemonade?
Probably when 2020 handed us all those lemons.
New Bud Light Seltzer Lemonade, packed with lemonade flavor after a lemon of a year.
Opponents? I've gone up against thousands.
And there's an opponent we're all up against, COVID-19.
But there's a way to beat it. Get vaccinated.
So when it's your turn, roll up your sleeves.
And let's get to the finish line together.